I was sitting here talking to myself, and I was thinking, after we done seen the movie Get Out, and plenty movies like it, Gamer, Surrogates, the list goes on. Why do we think that this Kanye that's out here with this blonde hair, blue eyes, is really Kanye West? I know the issue might be old by society standards, but at the end of the day, you listen to Kanye West's first 3 albums, and if you haven't listened to a mixtape called Good Friday, if George Bush is in the same political class as Donald Trump, then why in the world do we think that's Kanye West? They sat there and they showed you the truth. Mr. Jordan Peele said that Get Out is not a movie, it's a documentary. So, I just don't understand why y'all think this is Kanye. Well, also in my rant is this thing about jobs. I'm pretty sure I talked about it before. But when I was working my most recent job out of college, I was the only other black male in the kitchen. There was a black female that she was an older grandma energy, she was in the bakery, been there for years. We passed her up to give the pastry chef position to somebody else. It was in a town where these guys didn't even celebrate Black History Month. They had a diversity week. There was no R&B radio station, so of course there was no hip hop radio station. But they'll feed you, like most places. They'll feed the homeless, but what are they feeding the homeless? Now, if we know that food is fuel, or at least I know that that food is fuel, and if you would sit there and you would get some of this food that they are giving these homeless people, and then on top of that, some of the homeless people are traveling from food spot to food spot just so they can get food, so they can eat, spending the energy the food that they just ate to go get another plate somewhere else. This homeless thing it's really troublesome. You know what I'm saying? And there are people out there that do like to be homeless. They would rather be homeless, live in a tent, out in the back of the woods, whatever the case may be. But again, why? Now, I just recently listened to a video that Justin Purry from You Are Creators put up. And he said that there was mathematicians that got together and they did the math and they were like, 7 billion. The world's population could fit in Texas. At first you're like, oh hell no. There's no possible fucking way that 7 billion people could fit in Texas comfortably. Let's talk about families and all. My nana just passed away. I was riding through Virginia, seeing all this farmland, all this empty land. You know what I'm saying? Not saying that we don't need the trees, but forest type land. I was riding with my stepdad, and I was looking. I'm like, look at all this land. All this land. These people could even behind me, where I'm at right now. There's trees. And then I started thinking, maybe it could be very possible for 7 billion people to fit in Texas. It's just, if the world's population could fit in Texas, what are we doing here? What do we do? If 7 billion people could fit in Texas, that leaves the rest of the country for farmland, industries, whatever the case may be. So what are we really doing here if there's 7 billion people that could fit in Texas? I mean, you don't have to believe it, but just think about it. If three United States could fit in Africa, then really, what are we doing here? Why is the struggle so important? Why is having people easily be able to be easily controlled? Why is that the go-to? Also, when I was working my most recent job, I also noticed that with me ripping and running, stressing, I didn't have no time for meditation. I barely had time for sleep. I barely had time for my family. And FYI, I do not work at McAllister's. But I barely had time for my family. So what are we doing here? Why are we ripping and running? Life is not supposed to be work, pay bills, and die. It's not supposed to be like that at all. So, I ask you, what are we doing here? If you ask me, at least when I was growing up, the job of the older generation was to make things easier and less stressful and less struggle-like for future generations. Now, if all I'm doing is working 40, 50, 60 hours a week, there's no time to raise a family. You have time to provide for that family. Yes, you'll have time to do that. But raising a family is different. For example, my dad, he worked his ass off. And nothing against my father, but he worked his motherfucking ass off. And he had very, very little time to teach us how to be a man, or even teach us certain skills. For example, changing a tire on a car, changing the oil, or whatever the case may be. So, if that is the case, if experience is the best teacher, we all know that experience is the best teacher, because if experience wasn't the best teacher, none of us would be going to school. None of us will be going to school. I don't understand when it comes down to personal things, personal relationships. and stuff like that. If a person is born with no father figure, a boy is born with no father figure, nobody positive to give him what a man is supposed to do, and then that boy gets into a relationship with a person that had mommy, daddy, grandma, blah blah blah, you honestly think that relationship is going to work if that boy doesn't know how to be a man or treat his lady like a queen? Do you think that's going to work? I'm talking about strictly off of experience. If you've been raised around a whole bunch of broken relationships, broken marriages, pretend marriages, any of the case, then what subconsciously or even consciously, what are you going to attract? What are you going to get? You're going to think that how you were raised was the right way. If your dad was an abuser, both male and female, you're 9 times out of 10, you're going to be in at least one abusive relationship. At least one. Just saying, we have to be aware of these things. Be aware of your spouses, your significant other, their background. Be aware of how they were raised. There's some things that from the old school that we were not supposed to change. Some things are just not supposed to change. Yes, change is good, but some things are just not supposed to change. How a man is supposed to talk to a woman, I don't think that's ever supposed to change. How a woman is supposed to talk to a man, I don't think that's ever supposed to change, because at the end of the day, you're still a man, you're still a woman. Nowadays. Just a few things I want to get off my chest. Blkknowledge out. Peace.